Hello and welcome to Industry Today, the podcast powered by MTC Events. My name is Lauren Chambers and today we are talking about all things skills and training. Joining me is Will Bridgman, Managing Director of Norfolk-based manufacturing firm Warren Services, and someone that I know is hugely passionate about the skills landscape. So I'm really excited about today's conversation. Will, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So the skills gap in UK manufacturing has existed for a very long time. We've covered it in different respects in almost every podcast we've done. Why do you think the problems still exist when the issues are so well known and people are so aware of them?
I think sometimes it's misspoke. People talk about the skills gap. I think sometimes it's more a training gap. It's an acquisition gap. I spoke at an event the other day and to do with the energy sector, and they're very much, we need to get more people into our industry. We've got growth. We've got more projects, but they don't want to look outside of the norm. Mm-hmm. So everyone's fishing in the same pond. So as we need to do more manufacturing, we need more people in manufacturing, but we're not looking outside of manufacturing. So we see that we've got a gap of people that are perfectly qualified, exactly what someone needs. Very much what we do at Warren Services is try and increase the labour pool. Mm-hmm. So we have obviously an apprenticeship programme that then brings new talent into the industry. And sometimes working with those and developing those is much harder work, but we're increasing the pool and not making the gap worse.
Do you think that's one of the biggest challenges for the sector? They're too insular, they're not looking outside of what they know.
Yeah, they want the person that ticks every single box. Mm-hmm. Those people don't exist. We talk about, I was doing a project the other day about green skills. I'm like, there isn't really a thing. Green skills isn't a thing. We need more electricians. We need more engineers. We need more people that can make things. That we just need to encourage more people into our industry. And what we're particularly passionate about at Warren Services is attracting those young people into the industry, making our industry sound exciting, showing off the amazing things that we do. Why would people not want to enter the manufacturing industry when they understand what we really do? But I don't think we probably, I suppose it's businesses spend a fortune on business development, acquiring new customers. We need to do the same for our new staff to fill this perceived skills gap. It's just a people gap. It's a resource gap, but we need to encourage those people in and potentially spend as much money as we do in business development, winning new clients and winning new orders, as winning a new workforce, because people have got choices. They've got choices where to go to, and we need them in manufacturing.
And you think is that critical that you're potentially spending as much money on BD as you would be on recruiting the right people into your business? I guess if you've got the right people, then that becomes a USP in itself, doesn't it? It becomes a sales tool.
Yeah, definitely. For some of our clients, they're placing long-term contracts. And when we wander around the factory and they can see lots of young people being trained, lots of apprentices, lots of ex-apprentices in the business, and as part of our discussion, like a top level to them, is our average age of our workforce is, I think currently is 39, 40.
How many people do you have working at Warren Services?
So we're relatively 115 people. So we're a family business. But yeah, the average age of our staff, I would say, is probably 40 at the moment, which when you go to some manufacturing companies, you can see the concern for some of these long-term contracts where they're looking around and seeing lots of people over 60. We still very much value our older workers, but we need them to be augmented with younger people and let those older people or more experienced or more mature people train the younger people. And those younger people bring their own sometimes digital skills, which they're further forward with, but then the more technical skills they can learn from the current workforce.
I guess it's that talent pipeline, isn't it? You can't just bank on your older workers being around forever. You need the younger guys coming in. And how do you as a business find that younger talent?
So it starts at primary school age.
So that young?
Yeah. So we're part of National Manufacturing Day, which is the last Thursday in September, where lots of factories open up. We have 300 primary school children at year 6 throughout the town. I think it's 6 primary schools. So we will open up both factories and we will have all of those 300 primary school children through both factories in one day. So it's complete chaos.
I can imagine.
It's complete chaos. My sister that looks after HR is actually on holiday that week.
Great idea.
I'm sure. She said I didn't know what date it was. But we start there and we have that connection, and they all then get an experience of, it's not just us. We have 2 factories. We've got 2 other businesses, Boniface that make road recovery vehicles and Peerless that process plastic. They go through all 4 of those factories. So we've organised buses alongside the local council, which has been really good. So some of them walk, some of them we bus in, and there's a rota and they go round, and we try and do interactive things. Some of the children that come have got no interest in manufacturing. At least they've seen a factory or a number of factories and they can make that choice. And then we continue to work with those students. We have 1 senior school or academy in our town. So those children all go to that academy, and then we work with them to keep that connection. So we do the careers event where we've had to be really careful around actually making sure we're appealing to the young people. So we used to, years ago, rock up with our corporate stand, and then someone said, I don't think the children are really that interested. So we've now got a superhero Lego based, are we allowed to say Lego? No, stand, and we do a Lego challenge as part of the stand, so the children can participate in, reading an engineering drawing, which is Lego, putting it together. And then we quite often use welding simulation. One thing we have learned is to make sure we have a 50-50 split men and women. We have more men in the factory than women. We want to encourage more females into the factory space. This year has been quite active. We've got our 4 apprentices that start in September, 2 are young ladies and 2 are boys. So it's a good split. But we do those events, but then we also go in and do talks. We do work experience. We also fund all of the materials for the DT curriculum. So the school, it's got not excuse. It's got no reason not to make things.
You're taking a barrier away, aren't you? Which for schools is a cost in that case.
Yeah. Budgets are tight.
Yeah.
So they send me a list of what they need for each year group, and we try and supply that material. Something that also works well for that deeper connection is sending some of the young people that went to that school who have been apprentices and now are technicians within the factory back into the school to help with some practical lessons. So we would make those people available so they can go in and help augment the teaching staff. They're not teachers, but they're good, young, hands-on people. It's better than me going. I'm 48. They think I'm really old. It's better to send a 20, 22-year-old in that used to go to the school.
It's more relatable, isn't it? And they can ask them questions that they might not want to ask you as an MD of a business, but someone that's actually done that relatively recently. Who has driven all of those activities? Is that Warren Services? Is it a combination of the schools and colleges that you work with? Is it the local council? How's that all come about?
Probably Warren Services.
I'm
really lucky. It's a family passion. Both my grandfathers were apprentice engineers. My father was an apprentice. My sister was an apprentice. It runs through the business. And I think when my father moved a previous business from Surrey to Norfolk, when I was born 48 years ago, there wasn't loads and loads of engineering available. So he had no choice but to train people. He'd come through an apprenticeship system. And I think we need our workforce of the future. Those 4 apprentices that I've employed in September, do I have a job for them? No. Will I have a job for them? I hope so. Because you can't make a technician, an engineer overnight. It takes time. Those young people need a good 3, 4, 5 years in the business. So we need to be thinking about preloading. Some companies are very much like, I've got a need now. But it's a lot harder to fill a need like in the next month or 6 months. That's not how the school system works. That's not how the college system works. Colleges are becoming a bit more flexible. So it used to be like September entry. That's when you started and you have to wait till next September. Now they do multiple entry points, not just colleges, private training providers. And we use both. They're both apprenticeship providers, but some are colleges, some are private training providers. So there's a good mix.
We talked about this on a previous podcast, and one of the things that we spoke about was that younger people might be attracted to the bigger names, the bigger brands, which is fantastic, and they offer amazing opportunities. But they also take on a lot of apprentices, and therefore potentially the chances of you having a job at the end of that might be smaller because the amount of people they're bringing on, whereas you're taking on 4. And in an ideal world, if you can keep them on and they want to stay on, you will. So potentially that message needs to be put across to younger people a bit better.
Well, we had this exact conversation at this energy event, and they were saying, somewhere like Sizewell, we're building a new nuclear power station in Suffolk. They will get hundreds of applications. Some of the big tier 1 contractors will get 100 of applications. And I said, well, what you need to be doing is making sure you're working with the supply chain to say, these young people are obviously interested. Sometimes someone lower down in the supply chain might put an application out for an apprentice and no one might see it because they're not Sizewell, they're not one of these massive companies. So we need to make sure that as soon as that young person shows an interest, because lots of them are really good, they just, some of these big companies just haven't got enough places. So we need to make sure we share their interest in manufacturing with that supply chain and make sure these big government contracts have the requirement for a certain amount of apprentices to be employed. We need to make sure that that's being flowed down so people at my level are, I don't want to say compelled, but are compelled to do the work, because we train lots of people and some of them do go to other places because some other places don't train them, so they can save the money from not training and just pay a bit more money to take them from somewhere else. So we will always train, and we will train more than we potentially need because we know there will be some attrition.
Yeah. You talked about your September intake. You've got 50-50 split male and female.
Yeah.
How do you go about attracting women into engineering or those kind of groups of people that aren't as well represented?
So I think make sure when we attend school events, they see women, they see ladies. I remember taking my son and daughter to an event in Norwich, and there was a welding simulator, and as a young man I said to Henry, would you like to go? Yeah, how'd I go? Nancy, no interest whatsoever. Then a young lady turned up in her overalls and I knew who she was, and Nancy went, oh yeah, I'll have a go, because it's just, she was 7 or 8, is seeing those connections going, oh, that's a lady doing welding. Ladies do welding.
Yeah.
Just keep reinforcing that. We make sure that we try and do everything 50-50. We don't want to not have great young men in our business, but we want to make sure we can put a thumb on the scale a little bit, because if we don't, we're missing out.
Yeah.
The female mind is different in some ways from the male. We're missing a trick. We're not advancing our industry as much as we could if we had more collaborative approach.
And what do you look for in your apprentices beyond just their academic background?
We don't look for their academic background. That's where we're different, and that's the school quite like that. Our intake of those level 2 manufacturing apprentices is all based around their attitude. Do they want to learn? We're not really in. It is helpful, particularly for my sister, if they've got English and maths, because you then don't have to do it again. But we've got some young people in the business now that struggle. I'm really dyslexic. My father's really dyslexic. My son's dyslexic. So we wouldn't want to penalise someone because they struggle, because they've got a mind that thinks in a different way. So we just really want them to be able to turn up to work on time and be interested and want to learn. Because people often say to us, how do you manage with all these work experience, all these apprentices in your business? I'm like, what? Most of the people that work in the business were trained that way. We have got an advantage in manufacturing and engineering that lots of people came from an apprenticeship route. So they understand, they learned from a time-served person. So really it's their duty to encourage that. And ultimately, Warren, they've got no choice. They probably would leave if they didn't like that type of environment where they were having to coach and bring on young people. I think potentially they wouldn't hang around for that long, because there is so many of those young people in the business. And we insist on, part of the apprenticeship selection thing is we don't make them do some complicated forms. They come and work in the business.
Right.
Generally Christmas, half term, Easter, and we place all those apprentices, give them their apprenticeships at Easter before they do their exams. So it takes a bit of pressure off them.
They know they've got that coming up, so they can relax a little bit. They've not got the pressure on them to go out and find that job.
Their parents come in. We make sure their parents come in one evening with them. They come and do tours of the factory, so they feel comfortable. And quite often you'll have a mother say, I'm a bit concerned that Johnny won't get his maths or his English. And I'm like, it'd be really good if Johnny could get his head down and get that done. But the place is, it's not based on what they can achieve academically. It's something we've seen And quite often it's not just what I've seen. It's not really me. It's my sister Estee, but also the supervisors in the areas that they work in. You get a real good feedback, and potentially from some of the younger workforce who are very close to their apprenticeships have got a good feel for what they're going to be like in the workplace.
And the parent bit, I think, is really important, because ultimately they're the ones that can reinforce the message at home, and they're the ones that have probably brought their child along to this day to experience it. How do you find engaging with them? What sort of messages do you try and get across to them?
It's key. They really see it. Parents are really, I think we went through a phase years ago where it became unfashionable apprenticeships. Everyone wanted to go to university, and everyone's now looking at them and thinking they can end up with 50, 60,000 pounds a debt.
Easy.
Warren seemed to take these people on, train them up. They've got really good roles. They can progress through lots of different training. Last year we had 2 young people get their degree through working for us through a number of phases. I think the parents see that as a valuable way of learning rather than, going, oh, we really want to send everyone to university. I think there is change. And it's just saying to them, look, we will look after them. They are children, till they're 18 still. So we do have to, it works much better if we're engaged, because they will make sure, Johnny
getting up on time
gets up on time. And, it's just nice that they're engaged, because we are still developing as a young person. They do still change quite a lot. 16 to 20, there's a lot of flux.
Of course, yeah. And when an apprentice comes into your business, obviously there's, I guess, different, do you offer different apprenticeship qualifications, different roles? How does that work when someone comes in? What's a typical kind of apprenticeship look like?
Manufacturing apprenticeships are all the same initially now, but we have lots of other apprentices. So we use an apprenticeship program for business admin. Okay. We've got 3 young ladies in business admin at the moment, 1 in procurement, 1 in quality, 1 in the commercial team. But then one of them has already got our eyes on a level 4 apprenticeship in quality. After that, we've done SIPS qualifications, which is purchasing. We've done HR qualifications. We've done IT, digital-based stuff. But the manufacturing apprentices, when they join at 16, they all do a level 2, I think it's called engineering operations. But they all work in all 8 areas of the business. So for year 1, they work in laser and folding, they work in welding, they work in CNC milling, CNC turning, mechanical assembly, electrical assembly, paint, shop blasting, and we have a separate section where we build balconies, which is sort of separate within the same business, but it's very specialist within that. So that first year they go around on a cycle, and then the second year they do it all over again, because they're very different the second year than the first year. Learning some of those skills are transferable, and then at the end of the program we would get together the area supervisors to work out where we think they would suit best. Obviously, Estee in HR would speak to them and work out what they feel, work out what we've got gaps within the business. And it might be, look, you really want to go into welding. There isn't a gap in welding, but we've got a room in assembly. So you can go into assembly and then maybe transfer into welding. But sometimes the decision is made that they're not right for us. Generally, they are, but we will, as a business, we do have to make difficult decisions sometimes. And we've given them a good 2 years. They go somewhere else, and most feedback we get is that they're good. Yeah. We've done a reasonable job.
Yeah, yeah. And like you say, it's not going to be right for everybody. It's not always right for you guys. It's not always right for the apprentice. But I think the fact that you're able to show them all areas of the business not only helps you work out where they're best placed, but it gives them a much broader understanding of manufacturing and where they might want to specialise in the future.
Yeah, and sometimes they leave because they want to. So sometimes they stay for a while and then they want to try something different. Like we had one young man leave; he wanted to do on-site welding, stick welding. We don't do that, so it's fine. He's learnt his trade. You never know. Maybe he has a family, doesn't want to be working on site anymore. Maybe he'll come back. We try and always leave on good terms, because people will leave and go to another company that maybe we might do work for that company. I had an interesting discussion with someone the other day, and they were saying, if someone leaves, they're never coming back. We've had people come back. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. It's quite good if someone leaves for a year and then could I possibly have my job back? And you're like, yeah, of course you can. It works quite well. And some people want to go and travel, and that's the thing, young people, if they knew, we've got 2 in Australia at the moment. Australians will welcome, engineers, technicians from the UK because they want those skills.
Yeah.
You can travel the world. People say, if you can cut hair or you can make a coffee, you can work anywhere. If you can weld, you can probably get a job lots of places as well. So it's quite interesting where people end up. But the important thing for us is we don't get bent out of shape about people deciding to do something else. I work with other manufacturers like, I had an apprentice and they left. I'm not going to have another one. Well, that's maybe you didn't make it very good for them. Maybe you didn't pay them the right money. Maybe they were disinterested. Maybe you didn't pick the right person. It's a numbers game. You've got to try and do it.
And also, I think reflect on what you're doing and what you've done over, however many years. Like you say, most of your business has come from an apprentice background, and obviously people change, society changes, people's wants and needs change, the industry changes. So I guess how much of it is people evolving their skill strategy, not just from a technical perspective, but from a people, societal perspective.
Yeah, and sometimes it's that leadership. We are a growing business, but we haven't got roles for everyone to develop everyone. So sometimes we do lose people to get more senior roles in other businesses because we have a structure. We try and develop everything, but if someone wants to be a factory manager and we've got a factory manager of that factory, they're going to struggle. Unless that person decides to leave or we move them into a different role. So then sometimes they fly the nest that way, but that's never a bad thing. We still keep in contact with all those people. It's all part of their personal development. And then sometimes, you never know, they might then return to a more senior role within our business. It's you can't get upset about that or hold people back. You've got to, sometimes you have to, I said to someone the other day within the business, I think it's probably best if you leave. Not in a horrible way, but the role I think you should do, we haven't got here.
Yeah.
I think I need to support you to find that role somewhere else, even though they're really valuable to us, but they wouldn't ultimately be happy in the long term. So we're looking at that currently at the moment. That's sometimes quite a hard decision in my operations director's like, what have you done, Will? You told them you think they should leave. And I'm like, yeah, but it is ultimately for the best because if you try and treat those people and develop them the most, you will get the most out of them.
Do you think that's something that not enough employers do?
Yeah, I think people try and keep hold of people that maybe should fly the nest.
Because they've invested in them and
Yeah. And then they're still good, but they're not, and then maybe that sometimes you really worry as a SME particularly, like, what am I going to do if Joe leaves? But ultimately things sort themselves out. Someone else, you think, let someone else rise up. Not that person was standing on someone, but they were happy with the status quo. But then they're like, so what, could I potentially do that? We've had transfers of skills. There's a lady that works for us in our digital transformation team now that used to work in accounts. We were looking at automating stuff within the accounts side, and we were looking at different stuff. And she said, could I learn to do that? And I was like, yeah, great. She said, never really liked accounts that much. I just got into it as a young person, and it's relatively well paid. People always need account staff. But she said, I really like the idea of this. And she's completely transferred her job role. And she's been in that team for quite a long time. She does robot process automation, looking at, system stuff, completely different from accounts. But we've obviously kept her because we've given her something that she was interested in rather than bringing someone else out from inside. And what was great, she understood all the internal processes. I was
going to say, she knows the business, right?
Yeah. You weren't bringing in some really smart digital person that has no clue of how Warren Services operates. Mm-hmm. We had that person and she just needed some more skills.
She needed the technical element. She's got the understanding of the business and what you guys do really well, but you can build on that. How, you've talked about your senior team, and I know we've talked a lot about developing younger talent. How do you support your more senior staff with their training opportunities?
So we will, it's all the standard stuff, leadership and management, and then technical training within the business. We've got a gentleman at the moment. He's at the TWI for weeks and weeks. It's very expensive training. But, making sure we're always looking at development and, listening to what the people say, what skills that they lack as part of their review process, how we can infill those gaps. I'm very lucky. I have my sister that runs the HR. I always think it's a lot more than the HR. It's the training, the development. She's very connected with all of the people within the business and looks at where we've got gaps, where we need to develop, and look for the right place for that training. We've done stuff with MTC. We've had your team in and we've looked at stuff around strategy, around digital. Any opportunities. I'm currently doing a qualification at the moment through Made Smarter, digital manufacturing, leading change, which is a scheme that's been done in our area. So we're always looking across the board, and we focus on our younger workers. We're proud of our young age, but we also do really value our older members of staff. We've got particularly a gentleman, he's past retirement, he only works 2 days a week. We super value him. He's got 50 years of experience. Young people you can't learn experience. That you have to have been there, done the things. It's very, very valuable having those people and being flexible around attracting them into the, he doesn't want to work full time, but having him there 2 days a week is amazing. Here, super flexible, we're really, really helpful. He likes coming in. It works for all of us. So I think you've got this whole skills gap thing. It's like making sure we're still utilising those past retirement people, that we're reaching into our young people, that we're making the business flexible around female workers. Sometimes we've got a young lady, she's just joined the business, she's got a family. So we've had her start time's 9:15 or 9 o'clock. She's amazing. And if we hadn't been flexible, we wouldn't have got her.
Yeah.
So, sometimes, I think my father, he's going to moan if he reads this, but watches this, it will be like, people want a job, we want them here, they do, the olden ways were, they turn up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock and they do their shift and they work 5 days a week. We've got a person in the business that can only work 3 days a week. Their wife is the breadwinner, has got a very, very well-paid job. So he's the secondary income. He's brilliant. But we can only have him 3 days a week.
Yeah.
If we'd gone, no, we wouldn't have him.
Yeah.
So we've got to be, even though it is more complicated, and from the ops team's point of view, it's like, when's Arthur going to be here? Right, he's not doing this. And, but if we want the right people, we've got to be flexible. If we've got a £1 million machine that he's running 18 hours a day, we've got to have someone there, on shifts to make sure that works. But it's about choosing the right roles for the right people.
And like we spoke about earlier, society has changed. It's very different. The workplace is very different to what it was even 10 years ago. You take COVID as well. That's changed people's perceptions about working from home. And I appreciate in manufacturing, a lot of roles don't allow that. But how did Warren Services respond to that? Did it give more opportunities for you to be flexible post-COVID?
Yeah, I think COVID was a really busy time for us. Certain sectors that we work in, like theatre, was very quiet, but we're involved in grocery distribution systems. That was obviously really, really busy. So we stayed operational. Everyone came to work who was in the manufacturing side.
Yeah.
We split the shifts up. We sent the office people home, but then a lot of those came back, but split across 2 factories. So we worked in 2 bubbles and we split the 2 shifts apart. So there was a gap and we could clean in between. We were already using some digital tools. It just accelerated that. And then I think we're now nearly all in the office because most of the people in the office are supporting the people in the manufacturing side. So that works for us, but it allows us to have flexibility around just simple things like someone needs a dentist appointment. I don't want to have a day off to go to the dentist. No, we've got laptops, work from home, have an hour off to go to the dentist. It's just stupid. I need a fridge delivering or random stuff like that does make a real difference to people's lives. I don't want them having one of their 30 whatever days holiday because they go out have a fridge or a dentist appointment. We want that flexibility. But I do think there is a value in face-to-face communication and teamwork. We do like that, Warren. I think we are quite old-fashioned in that way. And I think because we're tied to the factory from, you can't weld things at home and not big things that we make and machinery and painting and stuff like that. So I think what it's really opened up is a deeper connection with our suppliers and customers because they are all over generally our customers are all over the country, that we are much more comfortable with weekly teams meeting with them, where before you probably wouldn't do that. There'd be more email comms. I hate email. I think because I'm really dyslexic, it's much easier for me to verbalise something than it is to type it out. But I think seeing that, the eye-to-eye contact, you can see when someone's unhappy.
Yeah, you read a lot of cues from people's body language.
We had a problem with a job the other day, and one of the other people on the call was like, he's really not happy. And I'm like, yeah, I could tell he's really not happy. He doesn't say a lot, but like he's really not happy. We need to sort this out. This isn't just a little problem. This is a bit of a bigger problem. We need to address this. You can get that where through, email communication is very, they're like shouting. And no, they're not. I've just told you what the thing is. I like to speak to someone and back it up with the salient points. But I think the whole digital transformation thing is just moving at more and more of a pace, and we need to be on board with that. And sometimes these young people, you think, they're going to be all over the digital stuff, which they are, TikTok, YouTube, but they're not necessarily savvy with the business systems that we're used to using. Like we use Microsoft Suite, other people use Google, those core tools. And you think, well, obviously they're really good at all of those. Sometimes there's a gap, and they've obviously not used business systems like CRM or ERP, and maybe don't understand what that is. So but they do adapt quite quickly.
Yeah,
I think
they can learn it quickly as well.
Yeah.
How do you think Warren Services' approach to skills creates USPs for you as a business?
I think, like I say, when people come around and they see a skilled workforce and a relatively young workforce, that helps from a sales point of view. Do
you make a point of bringing people into your factory for them to see that?
Yeah. We normally, if we can get someone to come to the factory, we normally get an order.
Right.
Because it's a nice place.
Yeah.
We always get really good feedback from people. A lot of our clients, we work in a lot of regulated industries, or people that don't just want to, we're 9,000, 14,000, 45,000, all the compliance stuff. The companies we're working for, that's great. That's a prerequisite. We want to come and look for ourselves for a day or two. And we always get great feedback that whoever they speak to, they get a connection with them, and they're happy to be spoken to. They don't get grunted at. And I think that makes a real difference. And then those people then feed back. And then when we potentially have the senior leaders from that business come, they feel like it's a place they want to work with.
Yeah.
And because we're making other people's products, we have to have a really close relationship with the manufacturing staff. Need to be talking to their design staff, their delivery partners, whoever it is. So that it definitely makes a difference. And I think people keep talking about a skills gap. So when people come and look to place contracts, they're like, have you got a skills problem? It doesn't look like, because you're telling me all this stuff. And then they see we have a lot of internal promotion. So they see, these people in these senior roles actually really understand what's going on. I'm not saying that you definitely have to be a welder to manage a welding department, but if you can get someone that wants to be a leader that doesn't understand the technicality of the process that you're carrying out, it does help. Yeah. And then they feel more comfortable with working with you, that like the person they're talking to really understands what they're trying to do. And I think, and I think they see that. And some of these bigger clients, they have a CSR responsibility within their contract, and they want to flow that down to like important subcontractors. And on the skill side and the development and the outreach to the youth, we do all the standard stuff, sponsoring sports teams and all of that stuff, working with the school. Just built a train, actually. Yeah. Not a working train. The school, they're celebrating the history of the railway through, I think it's part of this Britain or like Town in Bloom that they do. So we've now got, the school children drew up a train. We then had that modelled up, and then we built the train, quite a big train. My father said to me, how much did that cost? I'm like, I don't really want to think about
Doesn't
it.
matter.
And now it's in the middle of the town, planted up with all the flowers. And that's just another way that we're connecting with our community. We're a relatively, medium-sized town. We want our workforce to be able to walk to work. We don't want to stop people from further afield joining us, but lots of young people live in the town. They walk to school. They can walk to our factory. It's beneficial for us.
Creates more of a community feel. And I guess it's about thinking about things a bit more creatively and how you're supporting your community. And ultimately marketing more and services, not just to your customers, but to your future workforce.
Yeah, and it's like I've not spoke about, we work closely with a job centre. So sometimes we have a work experience program where the job centre can send someone that's like been out of work for quite a while. We haven't necessarily got a role for them. And I felt a bit difficult about that. But then the leadership said, no, we just need someone they can go and can get used to coming to work, turning up on time. We've created an area with a particular leader of that area that's happy to work with those people. And sometimes they come and they're, I wouldn't say boo to a goose. And after 6 weeks, they feel more confident. They've been having their lunch with the rest of the team, getting to work on time, and then they can use those skills to then apply for a job somewhere else, and it just lifts their confidence. We've got to be, I don't hate the term thinking outside the box, but if we just put job adverts out asking for the same stuff all the time and then wondering why no one applies, we're going to get the same end result.
Yeah.
We need to be encouraging different people to join our industry. Otherwise, all we're going to do is force wage rates up, make ourselves uncompetitive.
Do you think part of that is how UK manufacturing positions itself as a brand? Do you think more needs to be done as a collective to modernise what UK manufacturing looks like to people that might not know enough about it to work in it?
Yeah, I think if you want to encourage new people there's some young people, we've got a young man that works for us, came on work experience at 14. He wanted to be a welder, joined us at 16 as an apprenticeship welder, became a welder, became the welding and fabrication supervisor, the manager. He now looks after the laser side of the business as well. There's certain young people like that we're always going to get. We need to encourage the other ones, so we need to communicate with them in a different way. Like I was saying about our stand being more young person focused, making sure we've got young people. Sometimes go to these careers events and there's a couple of people sat down at a table with a pull-up, looking bored. I'm like, no one's going to think, wow, I think I want to join their business. Yeah, we've got to do a better job. I'll go back to we've got to treat it like business development. We've got to think, marketing. How do we, when we're thinking about how we're talking to our customer, we have to think differently about how we're talking to our potential employee. They use different forms of comms. I don't use TikTok, but they do. So we need to be doing stuff in different media platforms. I remember Make UK did a video with a rap. And it was just I was like, well, I'm not sure about that, but I'm not the target audience.
Yeah.
You've got to look from the eyes of the 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. So, I can then talk to my children. I can talk to the children of my employees and go, how do they feel about this?
Yeah.
Or give it to a young person to do, not an old person.
Yeah.
It's just using the right skills for the right thing and talking to them in the right way that we just need more people. And as this electrification of the home, electrification of heating, all the sustainability stuff that we need to do to get us to, reduce our carbon impact, we're going to need more technicians, more electricians, more engineers. We need to, I don't think that's a problem at the moment, but it will become a problem if we don't think about it now. And we need to be doing the work now, not 2 years' time. Oh, we haven't got enough heat pump engineers. Well, we're not going to suddenly click our fingers and they're going to appear. Yeah. We need to be doing the work now. And
also, I guess, educating them on the contribution that their job will make.
Yeah. Someone said to me, we're really focused around our sustainability. Last 10 years, we've massively reduced our scope 1 and scope 2 and understood our scope 3. And people are like, oh, why'd you do that? I do it for lots of different reasons. But one of the reasons is young people do care about that.
Yeah.
And they care that it's actual really happening, not some greenwashing. No, we've got the hard data here. We're now having all that independently verified. That's good from a customer's perspective, but also a future employee, because they want to see what difference they can make. They do really care. Not all of them, and you can't blanket them all with the same thing, but a lot of them do. So I think that does make a difference. We're working on, amazing things in that sector, and we just need to show them that and explain how they can be part of the transition.
How do you see manufacturing training evolving over the next few years?
I was talking to someone about this a few weeks ago, and I think it's got to be like a hybrid environment. We've got to have amazing video content. We've got to have amazing in-person content. We've got to have amazing practical things to do. We've got to have the use of VR, AR, but not, we're doing everything online. We're doing everything virtually, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work for everyone. We've got to have this sort of like smorgasbord of things. And I'm really excited about it, that, you get people learning different ways, that we could potentially have one course that was taught in multiple ways that could appeal to multiple different people. So it's, some people are more practical learners. Some people like watching videos. Some people will love the experience of VR. Some people hate it. It makes me feel a bit like seasick. And potentially using the skills and sharing them about, maybe we're delivering the same course in 100 colleges and private training providers. Well, lots of the units are the same. Could we find an amazing, lecturer to do this one module, and then we could share that and have some learning support alongside that? So they're not just watching the video, they're amazed by this great, presenter, but then they've got someone that understands learning. They could then do some practical alongside that, rather than this sort of
one size fits all.
Yeah,
approach.
sit there. No one's going to learn from looking at a load of PowerPoint slides on the screen. Young people are engaged with, podcasts, with video. I think some of it has to be sort of self-directed learning, having all those assets, but they've got to be really good quality, but they've all got to stitch back in and utilize these different tools.
Final question. What advice would you give to other SMEs that maybe are quite early on in this journey of rethinking their kind of skills and workforce recruitment process? What is the one key takeaway that you would advise them to do?
Don't keep doing what you're doing now. No, well, I say, if you keep putting job adverts out and you can't get the people, well, just keep putting job adverts out isn't going to solve the problem. You've got to look at a different place, maybe long-term unemployed, maybe someone that's disabled that can't have access to work, maybe this amazing pool of women that are available that have got children, or men that are caring for children, but you need to be flexible. Maybe you've got to make the job more exciting.
Yeah.
You've got to talk about the job in a different way. People look at a job spec. I think we've got to sometimes maybe just jazz it up a bit.
I like the idea of thinking about it as a job ad. You are advertising a role as you are selling that role, your business, to that person. Because
people think, no one's applying for my. It's like someone's duty to apply for that job.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to do a better job of. If we're not got full employment, but lots of people have got jobs, and you've got to somehow make them want to do your job. Which putting the same job advert out over and over again with the same stuff on it is not going to help. And I think it's talking to your local colleges, talking to your local schools. If we're going to really make a difference, we need to make sure more people want to do those things. So it's just making your company more visible to the job centre, to the local community, to the local schools. I think it all helps, but it's not going to happen overnight.
No,
it's not. I did that. I did what Will said, and nothing happened a week later.
Yeah,
takes time.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of the really key points and one of the great things that you've proven is that it doesn't just sit with you guys as the employer. An awful lot of it does, but they're engaging with the local community, whether that's through schools, colleges, even down to primary school age, the local councils, the job centres, community groups, whatever that might be. These people want to be part of it, but it can't all be fixed by an individual business or organisation in that way. It's a team effort, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, amazing. Thank you, Will. That was such a really fascinating conversation. So great to be able to share what you and the team at Warren Services are doing. And hopefully there is some stuff in there that SMEs can take away. We've talked about an awful lot, but just some little nuggets of information and some examples of ways in which you guys have gone about what you've done that hopefully some of our listeners and viewers can take away. So thank you for joining me today.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
If you would like to share your own views and experiences about this much talked about topic, then please leave comments or reviews against this episode. We are back next month for the next edition of Industry Today. You can check back on past episodes by searching Industry Today wherever you access your podcasts. We hope to see you again soon.